the Inner Game podcast, brought to you by the Science of Excellence, presented by Rob Hume, the leading elite athlete mental performance coach. Unleash your power.
So, welcome onto the Inner Game podcast, Izzy Petter. And on the show today, we have somebody who has achieved great success in such an early stage in her life and sporting career. We have an Olympic bronze medalist from the Tokyo Games representing Great Britain and the Great British Hockey team. So thank you very much, Izzy, for coming on and giving up your time today.
No worries. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to it.
So the purpose and the aim of the Inner Game podcast is to help shine a greater light on the mind, the power of the mind and psychology, and how this impacts sports performance, and to look at how much help and support athletes get with this part of their performance, and how much time athletes are actually spending on the mental side of their game. So I'm really looking forward to delving inside your mind a little more and finding out what you think about the mental side of your sport and performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge part of sport. I don't think I realised that until I got to the senior game. I sort of started playing hockey at the age of 5 and got my first senior international cap when I was 18. And then I realised, I was like on this high, I was like, wow, I've made it. And then I thought, there's a point where it hit me and I was like, right, now I've got to continue to perform, continue to get selected. And that's where the mental stuff really hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not prepared for this. I was like 18 at the time. So yeah, it's hugely important, definitely.
So before we go down that road, I'd just like to rewind back time for you and just ask you what drew you to hockey and how and when did you start playing as a young girl?
So I began playing when I was 5, and mainly because my mum played, and I used to train on a Sunday at this academy for literally 2 hours in the morning. I think it was a way for my parents to get me out of the house, to be honest. And then just ended up, I just didn't stop really, just carried on playing. I then went up the ranks, got into Surrey when a year young, and then did England 16s, 18s, 21s, and then the development squad. And then, yeah, I just didn't stop. And I think that was what was different, is that I kept going, and my other friends mentally couldn't hack it really. And I think that was a massive factor. And everyone says, oh, why do you think you made it? And I genuinely think it's because I just kept going. Like, obviously I'm talented and I have the skill set and stuff, but it definitely was almost sticking with it and just seeing where it took me.
And you touched on it there and we mentioned this just before we came on about those athletes who do have the talent but don't kind of make the most out of it. And if you could try and describe a little more as to, with some of the friends that you know that weren't able to get to the level that you've got, what do you think are some of the key ingredients there that enabled you to just keep going? Because it's easy for you to say that, oh, I just kept going, but behind that, there's a lot going on in there from yourself, isn't there, to just keep going?
I think it's the age when you get to like 16, right? And everyone's going to parties and there are 16s, 18s, whatever. Yeah, everyone's going out basically. And I think that was the age where people then started to think, oh, like it's more cool to go to parties than to like actually prep right for a game or prep right for a camp. And so, yeah, at that age, a lot of my friends were on the party scene. They were, drinking all sorts, and it had a detriment on their performance. Whereas I did it occasionally, but I also knew I had to prepare right for these England camps I used to go to, like with food, sleep and stuff. And I honestly don't know where that came from. I think I was quite a mature person. I always kind of have been, because I've been mostly the youngster in most teams. I've been around older people, and I also I like a party, but like I can only hack it like only once in a while. So I do think it was just that, and I did just love playing. Like I just love scoring goals, and it was just a great environment to be in. And yeah, I don't really know what. Though I did have slightly a bit of a blip when I was 18, and I was on my gap year, and I did see people go traveling, and I did quit hockey for like a week, and then I was like, literally 6 months later, I was making my international debut.
Whoa.
So it was a crazy year, because I was like, one end of the scale, I don't want to play anymore, I want to go traveling, and then the other end of the scale, I was making my international debut. Like it was crazy. So yeah,
life can flip on its head at times, can't it? And that's
definitely
an example of
yeah.
that.
If you had told me that, I literally remember making my debut, and I was like, right, so I was going to go traveling and be a bit of like a, go do South America and all sorts, and then I thought, no, I'm going to give it a go, and it's a good job I did give it a go, because
Right.
where I got to, pretty cool.
Fantastic. So who were your sporting heroes and idols growing up? Was there anybody that you particularly looked up to in the world of hockey or in other sports, potentially that you tried to, I don't know, model yourself on in some way, whether that be physically in terms of like the way that you perform, or even in terms of like the traits, mentally, psychologically, the way that somebody else was, that you thought, yeah, that's how I need to be in order to be able to get to where I want to go?
Yeah, I guess like the 2012 Olympics, like you saw Jess Ennis win gold, and my parents were actually not in the stadium when it was like Super Saturday, but they were in like the vicinity of it. They could hear like the roar, I reckon. And in terms of hockey wise, a lot of the people I looked up to are actually my teammates now, so which is kind of weird. So I used to like watch them. I mean, they won gold in 2016, so I watched that, and I remember thinking like, I remember going to bed that evening, and I said to myself, I want to go to an Olympics. And at that point, I was like an under 16 England player, which is still a good achievement, but it's nowhere near an Olympics. And I just remember thinking, I've just got a graft. Like my friend at the time was like, all right, I'm going to give you a program, and we're going to be really consistent with it. And like, obviously I did not do this program, but it had the right intention. But even then, there was no sort of mental side to it, except for the fact that I wanted to be sort of a cool cucumber. Like my friend, who was always very sporty, and we grew up together, was always like the cool cucumber of us, whereas I was a bit like hot-headed, and I couldn't sometimes deal with adversity. Like in tennis, I remember I used to have a paddy on the court. Like I couldn't deal with it. Whereas my friend could just like get on with it. So it was probably, even then, it was very minimal. Only become important when I was like 18 or so.
Right.
So did that go in and out?
It did a little bit, yeah. It did a little.
Did it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hoping normally the Wi-Fi's fine, so hopefully it will stay.
That's fine. What's most important to you about playing hockey?
I think it just provided a community that I could be a part of, as in, everyone in life sort of has something they're good at, whether it's anything like art, music, drama. My thing was hockey and sport in general, and it provided a community that I could just be myself. I'm actually quite an introverted, quite quiet person, so when it came to hockey, I could really like just sort of do my thing and like show people that like I might be quiet, but I'm actually quite good at hockey as well. So yeah, and most of my friends now are from hockey, except for my boyfriend, who isn't at all, which is quite nice. But yeah, just a really good community, definitely.
Fantastic. Yeah, I often when I always ask that question, to everybody who comes on the show, and then I realised that I haven't spent enough time thinking about that, about myself, and about why I certainly used to play football like I used to. But I came to the conclusion that a lot of it was just freedom. And when I would step out onto that football pitch and play, I was just kind of free from everything else that was going on in my life at that time, especially as a kid. And it's just a way of being able to express myself in a way that I couldn't, because I was, when I was younger, I was a lot more introverted. I was quite shy. But then that would go, that would disappear on the pitch, and I just loved that. Loved being able to just almost be a different person out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely agree. And like, it's almost like I'm a completely different person off the pitch than on the pitch. I'll literally tell people what to do on the pitch. I never tell what someone wants to do, and off the pitch, I'm way too oh gosh, no, not going near that. Whereas on the pitch, I'll literally be completely different. But it just provides a space you can just be someone else and forget about everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, in terms of sport and looking at it in terms of a mental and a physical aspect, in your opinion, what percentage would you say drives your performance and ability to perform at the level that you are doing? What percent would you say is mental, and what percent would you say is physical?
I genuinely think it's 70% mental. It's hard to say that, because obviously people who aren't naturally athletic or have a natural ability, it's going to be different for everyone. But for me personally, it's definitely that much, because it really affects my performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I as I say, I ask some of the same questions each podcast, and nobody has ever dropped below 50% mental.
Yeah.
And some have said 80% mental. So it just goes to show even themselves and yourselves as athletes how important it actually is. And this is why I'm so passionate about doing the mental performance coaching and sports psychology work I do, because it just became, after all the research and all the work that I did, it just became so apparent how this was the real game changer for people. And I spent a lot of time actually almost trying to disprove what I thought, to see if what I was really thinking what was correct. And there's the whole, one of the places where, one of the rabbit holes I went down was the whole concept of nature versus nurture. Are you born this way, or are you developed? And I personally believe, after everything that I've learned, that the biggest, overriding factor is nurture. It's that environment. The environment shapes you, and you have two environments. You have the external environment, but you also have this internal environment, the one going on inside your head, and they can often be two very different things. The mind can. We give away clues as to how we think. Is sometimes we can blow things out of proportion and make an event bigger and more drastic than what it actually is. And but the whole debate of nature versus nurture, I feel, kind of fits into this physical and versus mental aspect. And there's no getting away from it that the physical side has a huge impact. There's no way that you can get to go and represent your country and go and perform in the Olympics and winning a bronze medal without all of those physical hours that you've put in. You could have the most belief and motivation in the world, that you could possibly have, but if you're not skillful enough, fit enough, there's nothing that's going to make up for that, really. I'm certainly not taking away the physical, but what I've seen and witnessed is that it's often that the mental is stopping the physical expressing itself.
Yeah. And I think it's when you get to that top level, so you've done the physical work, it's making that last step to the world's greatest athletes. They will all be just that 1% better, where it be their mental game's better, or and it just surprised me, the lack of sort of mental support and coaching you get when you're younger, because there was just none, like, at all. So when I did get to the senior international stage, I did struggle a lot, because I was like, oh my gosh, I've been confident the whole way through, and now I'm being challenged selection wise and stuff, and I slightly crumbled. And I was like, well, it's because I've had no teaching on how to deal with it, really. I had to sort of self-teach myself, almost, with the help of psychologists, obviously. But yeah, it was really surprising.
So you just touched on it a little bit there at the end. So if I'll just trace it back a little bit, actually. So do you feel that you have had enough help with the mental side of your performance?
I don't think so at all. No, not up to 18 at all. At the moment, yes, we have a brilliant psychologist. She's great, and she gives me a lot of stuff I can do to help myself, although I find it very tiring mentally, but it does work. But I do think I can do more of it, because you think of all the hours a week I train, I don't do nearly as much mentally. And I definitely think it could unlock a lot of potential that I know I have. But at the moment, yes, that when I was under 18, I literally had none at all, which I do think has had an effect.
And I've got this, quite a lot from parents. I work with a lot of footballers, especially, academy footballers who have been at, Man United, Man City, and these sorts of places. And I've had it from a few parents where they've said, we're at the best clubs, with the most amount of money, untapped kind of finances. And what you are teaching my son, they're not being taught this in these clubs. And I find it, I don't know, I find it very surprising, to be honest. And also a real shame that so many sports organizations and sports clubs and sports programs, that they just spend so much time on the physical. As I said, you can't get away from needing that and going through the process of being good physically. But there has to come a point, and I think eventually there is going to be a real kind of breakthrough with more mental performance coaching and more sports psychology across all the levels, because many of the challenges that athletes have, or even just people in general, but if you just focus on athletes, most of the problems that they've got with the mental side of their game has manifested and come from something somewhere in their life when they was much younger. So if they were taught these techniques and strategies when they was much younger, then they won't manifest into something much bigger when they get older and when they get put into even more pressure. Because when an athlete's put into more pressure, that lack of belief, that whatever the issue is, will manifest even more, because it's shining a spotlight on it.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think these sports organizations sometimes treat athletes as not human. I think they treat them as just a body, because that essentially, if you really simplify sport, is like it's just your body performing like at extreme levels. And there have been times where I feel like I'm just like not treated like a human sometimes, and it's like a lack of like a link between like your brain and your body are connected. They're not two different things. Like they both need to be looked after. And it's like, I definitely think there's a huge part of that they just see like the body needs to look after, not the mind. It's like both need to work together to reach new levels. And I think if you don't have one and without the other, it's not gonna work.
Definitely. I spent a lot of time also researching into spiritualism and yoga, and the term yoga means union, means one. Essentially the mind and body are as one. You can't have one without the other, and the mind and body are in constant symbiosis. It's constantly checking each other out. The mind is analyzing what the body's doing, the body's analyzing what the mind is doing, and then making these changes and adaptations often, neurophysiological changes. If you step out into an environment and, I don't know, some form of danger is detected, then chemicals are produced, adrenaline's produced, cortisol's produced, and as you say, I agree. That's the impression that I get, and not just from coaches, but also just people, Joe public, watching athletes on TV. They think that that just because they're outperforming on these great stages, that they don't have emotions, that they don't have feelings, that they don't have down days, that they don't have things going on in their external life. And everybody turns up to work at times not feeling 100% because of either you might have got physically ill or something has happened in your personal life. But for you athletes, that's almost discarded, isn't it? When you go out to perform, and if you don't perform, that's not taken into consideration at all, is it?
Yeah, and I think there's also this pressure to sort of get on with a lot of things. Obviously, like example, you're doing a running session and it's not going very well, but you just keep going because it's like I said, just keep going, and you battle on through things. And sometimes you need to take a step back and actually give yourself a break.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like within hockey, like we've been very good about like thinking of ourselves as humans as well. Like we did this amazing exercise last year before the Olympics where each member of the team wrote a letter to the team basically explaining like why they are the way they are, like what's happened in their life which has made them behave in certain ways. And it gave such good insight into why people behave in certain ways and why they are the way they are. And it made me think that everyone has a story behind each behavior. It was really powerful. But I definitely think there is a certain extent where people are like, oh, just get on with it. And you're like, no, like sometimes you have to give yourself a little bit of a break. And yeah, I just think it's really interesting.
Can you remember one of your best ever performances? What's one of your performances where you really nailed it and everything came good for you? Can you remember a time like this?
So I remember like one that stands out massively is I was 16 and then we went to the national finals, which is like all the best club teams in the country. And we played 4 games and I scored 16 goals in 4 games, which is like, I have never done that ever. And I remember it just like, I was just like, everything I did was like, just went well. And like every shot on goal, like either went in the goal or it was on target. And looking back now, I'm like, how did I score 16 in 4 games? But I did, because I felt everyone backed me. I had confidence. We had a great team. I think it's a combination of factors that led to that.
Just to touch on what you were saying there about this, because this is one of the things that I do when I work with athletes is trying to get them to understand how they actually did it. Because as I said previously, there is the external world and there is the internal world. And when performance meets that sweet spot, when you play at your absolute best, something is literally happening differently inside your mind. And as we said kind of off air beforehand, that to perform at your best and to go into what is called the flow state, that is a form of trance. It's a trance-like state. So I'm just curious to know if you could try and describe in more detail as to how it actually was if you can think back to there. How did it look? How did it feel? How were you feeling? And in those moments where you were scoring all those goals?
I think I felt really like powerful, if that's like a way to describe it. I think I felt like I could try anything and like I could do anything and it would come off. And even if it didn't come off, like I wouldn't care, because it would be like, oh, I tried it, but it didn't work, then it hasn't worked. It wasn't like I was beating myself up about it, which I think was a massive difference. And I also think that like the coach I had at the time was like so good for my confidence. He'd be like, go on, is it just like take them on, like show them what you can do, like go score those goals. And I need positive reinforcement. I'm the type of player who thrives off people telling me like, oh, go on, give it a go, like
Yeah.
like that. And it just really helped. And then so when I mean, it was aided by the fact I did score 6 goals in the final. Like I was only on 10 goals at game after game 3. And it was quite a while ago now, but I do remember just thinking like I just remember feeling like I was the best there, which was just such a nice feeling to have, which doesn't always come around very often.
Definitely. So I was wondering if we could then have a look at the opposite end of that. Can you remember a time when things really didn't go right for you, where you felt like you just wasn't able to perform to the level that you knew that you were capable of? Have you got a memory like this?
Yeah, I mean, it was a period of time actually. So 2020, obviously, the Olympics were meant to be in that year, and I think for the first 3 months, I just like I felt like my body would just tense up, and I couldn't do the things I knew I could do. And then I think back to say that time where I did score all those goals, and I was like, how did I do that? Like I couldn't make the connection between like the fact that I did it. Like I thought it was almost like someone else had done it, like it was a different person. Whereas I knew it was me. But yeah, and I just had no confidence. I wasn't getting selected, and it was almost like a domino effect. Like I wasn't playing well, so then I wasn't getting selected, and so then I was like, well, I'm not good enough. So then I played worse, and it was horrible because I knew that I had the potential to get selected and be a good player in the environment, but it was so frustrating. So the fact the Olympics did get postponed meant during lockdown I just focused. I read so many psychology books. I was like, right, I want to get this. I want to stop this now because it's making me suffer, and I wasn't enjoying hockey at all. And I think at that point I was like, why am I doing it? Like this is just making me suffer in terms of everything, like self-esteem. Even outside hockey, my self-esteem was like so low, so it was affecting like every area of my life. So at that point I was like, I really sort this out. And in the end I did, but obviously it didn't stay for long because then it crumbled again at the Olympics. So it comes in waves. I think for that period of time in 2020 was definitely the worst it's been.
Yeah, so just to kind of look at those two things then. So as we've already talked about, when you performed in that national final or national finals, you was able to kind of put yourself into or get into that flow state, if you like, and in that state, you are seeing everything in a completely different way, and how the mind constructs everything is through the sensory system. And when I work with athletes in helping them get into their best performance states, one of the things that I do is get them to compare what their state of mind is like at their best and what it was like when it wasn't like that, and look at literally how those two movies inside their mind, if you like, how they are constructed differently. Because when you go back to those two memories and kind of properly sit in those memories, you would see that the actual image of them looks different. Things look different. The size of the hockey ball could be different in one to the other. The size of the goal, could look different. The size of the goalkeeper can look bigger or smaller, and all those these factors are being controlled by your state. So being able to get control over that and not get drawn into that defensive state of mind, because you said something else actually, how you felt stiff at times, and the body goes stiff when it's detecting danger, and that danger doesn't necessarily, on the hockey pitch for you, that danger isn't necessarily somebody with a gun or a baseball bat or a saber-toothed tiger. That danger can simply be, what if I lose today? What if I underperform? And at some level, that doubt about you being able to perform in that moment is kind of reflection on somebody's like self-worth. What if I don't play well and then people don't think as highly of me? Or what if I don't play as well and then I don't make the squad? And to the mind, the subconscious mind, that is a threat. It's a threat to the athlete as a person and who they are and what they're striving to be.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that bad period was based on what other people thought. So like it all stemmed from when we have a penalty corners injection where you basically pass the ball into the flicker and they flick, and I was the injector and it wasn't going well. And I would go up and I'd be like, well, they don't want me to inject because they don't think I'm very good. They never told me this, but I was like, in my brain, I was like, well, they do think this because I know they think this. And then it would go into my normal game, like, oh, they don't think I can pass the ball, so they're not going to pass me the ball, or they don't think this. And it was all about what other people thought. And it was exhausting because I'd have this inner dialogue throughout the whole training session of like, oh, they think this. And I'm like, why am I focusing on this? Like, and then I tried to combat it by saying, no, Izzy, they're not thinking that. They don't really care. Like, they're just focusing on themselves. Like, so yeah, it was exhausting at the time. I'm glad I'm not in that state anymore.
Yeah.
But I do worry because I do think confidence is such a fragile thing. And one comment, which is what happened at the Olympics, like made it crumble. And I was like, how have I let this happen? So yeah, it's quite a scary thing in a way.
Yeah. Well, but you're already showing the signs that what you was able to do was to break that pattern. Through you kind of saying to yourself, I'm not accepting being stuck in that state, and then hitting the psychology books and dissect it in your mind, and through obviously what you was reading and perhaps some of the help that you got from, I don't know if you got help from the sports psychologist at GB Hockey, but it's as I say, it's a state and it's a pattern, and our states of mind are pretty much controlled by two things, really: what we're seeing and what we're hearing. And the more you see an image, the stronger that feeling feels associated to it. And the more you hear a sound, and that sound can be the voice inside your head, the more you think a thought, the more that feeling grows. The more you see that image, the more that feeling grows. And then when you put them both together, you see this, somebody is seeing this image of themselves underperforming, and this voice in their head saying they don't believe me, or this voice in the head of a coach saying something unpleasant to me. If that goes in, that image, those sounds, the voices, it drives the internal state, and that knocks an athlete out of the flow state, and it puts them into the freeze, fight, or flight. And when you mentioned about that stiff state, that's all down to the freeze, fight, or flight mechanism. That it's almost like you get stuck in that freeze state to some degree. You can't just let your skills just flow from you, because there's one part of you that's wanting to go out and perform, but there's another part that's scared to fail at the same time.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's like an internal battle the whole time. And I do have some things I do which help. So like you mentioned yoga, I've started doing that, sort of like meditating, to be more present. And like I'll literally breathe, like I'll breathe really deeply before I go on the pitch, just like relax myself, because I am such an overthinker, and I do get stressed and I get anxious. So I'm like, I just need to chill myself out. Like reading, I've taken up crochet, like to chill myself out. So I do have like stuff that I do, but I go through cycles with it. And I know when I'm not taking care of myself, I'll just go on my phone like the whole time. And so then my brain becomes like overstimulated. And it's like with the whole social media thing, I find it a nightmare, because it's like, it's obviously addictive, and you need to break the cycle. So I go through phases where I'll read loads, I'll be really good, I'll be really mindful. And then the last 3 weeks have been so bad with my phone, and it does affect the way that I feel on the pitch. So it's all, I find it fascinating. It's all very connected.
Just to add on to what you were saying, because you kind of learned something yourself there, and I want to just emphasize that so that you actually keep doing it. One of the best things to do, like you said, when you were stepping out on the pitch and you was second guessing what some of your teammates were thinking about you, the thing that you did there to help yourself was to question your own thoughts. And that's one of the most That's the most simplest technique that anybody can use on themselves. Question the questions. Is what I'm thinking the truth? Is what I'm seeing and saying what it is, or is it more than what it is? And there's anything that you can say to yourself that's going to break it. What if what I'm thinking isn't real? What if my teammates don't think that about me? What if I can perform even better than what I did last time? It just those questions help interrupt the pattern. It's like a pattern interrupt, and as soon as you interrupt the pattern, you will break out of that state, and you'll break out of that kind of negative loop of thoughts, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it is exhausting. Like, I remember just feeling so exhausted with it because it would just go on and on. And what I find fascinating is, why is in our mind just positive? Why can't it just be help ourselves naturally? Why does it have to be naturally negative? I'm like, come on, why can't you just be a really positive person, just believe in yourself? But it's much more complicated than that, isn't it? But yeah, it's so frustrating at times.
No, but I really appreciate Izzy, you being so honest there, and giving these insights, because anybody watching this, it's so powerful for people to listen to yourself, talk about these things. Bear in mind, you've been to the Olympics, you represent your country, you've won a bronze medal, and yet, yes, you are human, and you have moments where you're not always on it, and sometimes some people think that these people we see on TV doing these fantastic things that they don't have these moments where they're struggling, and so I really appreciate you being so open there about it, because as I said at the start, I want this podcast to be a place where people can come and learn from people like yourself. And sometimes just hearing somebody say the things that you said there, can make somebody feel better, and think it's not just me that's like that,
Yeah, and I think it's quite. I enjoy speaking about it because I think we can all learn so much from each other. I've learned so much from I read Adam Peaty's book over Christmas about breaking the equilibrium and all sorts, and I find it so fascinating because I never realized how important it was. And then I got to a professional level, and I was like, this is the difference between professional and non-professional. Is the mental game, and it's intriguing watching the world's best and what they do, and I try and learn as much as I can from them. So yeah, I think it's important to talk openly about it, and yeah, I just very, very interesting.
And in speaking about it, shows that that you got the capacity to deal with it as well. You're not in fear of it, which is great, because often somebody can't speak about something because they're in fear of this particular thing that they've been thinking about, and that then closes them up even more. So just being able to express oneself helps liberate ourselves, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important because I think I used to be a bit like that. I used to be a bit closed off, but now I'm like, you know what? I want to get better at this, and because I know it will improve my game. So it's important to just chat about it and learn things from other people and just add it to your game, because
definitely
any help will be of benefit.
Can you think of a performance related issue from your past which you think could still affect you today? Is there ever been a moment or an occasion, a game, or something which happened some time ago which could impact either positively or negatively today, something which flicked it one way or the other, if that makes sense?
That's a good question. I think, trying to think back. Well, I was going to come back to the whole injecting thing, because I remember I had a game where I genuinely could not do it. It was awful. I was so humiliated and embarrassed, and I didn't do it. Oh no, I didn't do that for a year. And also we have penalty strokes in hockey, and I missed it, and it meant that we didn't go to the nationals, and I've never taken one since, because I can't face the pressure, because I know I can do it. In training, I'm oh yeah, I'll do it, because in training there's no pressure, whereas you get to an Olympic semi-final, Olympic final, and you've got the whole weight of team on your shoulders, and if you miss it, you're like, well, you just feel, I just don't think I could hack the emotional like luggage, the pack like of that. Yeah. Even when I was, I think it was when I was 16, I really haven't taken one since. And people ask me like, oh, why don't you take one? And I'm like, because emotionally, I don't think I can hack it.
Do you think that, what's the best way of saying this? In fact, no, I'll move on from that. Have you ever had any conflicting values? I think you touched on this earlier, or priorities, which, you know, you're having to deal with in order to, you know, help make sure that you were able to perform and get to the level that you wanted to?
Yeah, I did touch the whole gap year thing. And at the time, obviously, you're like 18, just left school. Everyone's either at university doing Freshers Week, or they're going traveling around the world. And part of me like absolutely loves travel, like just see the world and experience different cultures, because I think it helps you become a more rounded person. And yeah, I just think it's amazing. So at the time, I didn't think seniors was really on the cards. So like my coach was telling me like, you have the potential, you have a chance to get seniors, and I was like, no, I don't. Like, it's so far away. Like, I was like 18 at the time, and it's just not happening basically in my mind. But then when I stopped, I felt I had no structure. I felt I had no, because it'd been part of my life so long that I literally felt, I was like, well, what am I now if I'm not a hockey player? And I think identity is like a huge part of sport. And obviously a lot of chat about when people retire and their whole identity, and they have identity crisis and stuff like that. So then I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, if I'm not a hockey player, like, what am I? Am I just a normal person? Which I didn't like. I was like, no, like, I'm a hockey player. So then, I went back to it, and it all ended up all right. But the whole identity piece was the reason why I probably came back to hockey, because I think I was like, what am I now? Like, I'm not a hockey player, which wasn't very nice, actually.
No, and that this is something that, you know, many athletes after they've retired, you know, struggle with that. It is that if you've got up every day for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, and you're saying I am, and then what after whatever sport you play after that? I am a hockey player, I am a footballer, I'm a netballer, I'm a swimmer. If you've been doing that from the age of 5 to 30 for 25 years, that's what you've been saying to yourself, and then your career stops, either from retirement or whatever reason it is. At some point, it is going to stop, isn't it? You get up that next day after you stop playing. What's at the end of that sentence? And that's when so many athletes then, you know, struggle with the mental health, and they get involved with, you know, gambling and other things like that to try to fill that void, because they're not sure who they are anymore. And as you said, that structure goes, that sense of identity goes, their values are wrapped up in being an athlete, their purpose is driven by that. And if an athlete who retires hasn't then made that shift internally from being an athlete to then being this other newer version of yourself, an extension of the athlete, if you like, then that's when it can leave a hole. And I think, you know, this is another area where sport as a whole needs to do more, helping athletes once they've finished. You know, what's been put in place by all these different sports clubs and sports organizations to help athletes once that time ends. What you know, because the sports clubs and organizations put so much pressure on the athletes to become an athlete, and then it's like, well, you're now done. See you later.
Yeah. It's like it's almost like a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
Like, and it's GB Hockey are very good. We have an amazing lifestyle support, Emma, she's just brilliant, and she gives support after you leave. And so she does a huge amount of work with retired athletes and helping them transition, because I can't imagine it. Like, I'm quite scared, actually. I want to play hockey for as long as I can.
Yeah.
So GB Hockey are very good, but I do think it's something that is overlooked in other sports, definitely. But yeah, the whole identity gets like the hockey player gets wrapped up in your identity, and then it's like it's so complicated and confusing. But yeah, it's got quite scary concepts actually.
Well, hopefully you don't need to think about that for quite some time yet.
Hopefully not. We'll see.
I remember watching an interview with Kobe Bryant, and they asked him towards the end of his career, what's next for you? What do you want to do? And he said, I want to be a storyteller. And, he said this to all his teammates, and he said that they all laughed at him. And but he'd spent some time, as he knew, that part of his life was going to come to an end. He was thinking ahead of time what he was going to do, and that's what he decided. Obviously, he very sadly had that accident and passed away, but he was able to successfully make that transition from being a basketballer to then a storyteller. He won an Oscar for a documentary made. He then wrote books, so he was able to kind of use his sports identity to transition into a new identity, and he planned for that, if that makes sense. And I would imagine, not being somebody who has ever been in your situation, that is something that's crucial, really, to be thinking about it as that time it is coming around the corner. Just to be thinking about, well, what can I do? What else can I do? How can I use the life that I've had as an athlete to now benefit me in an even greater way? How can I use it to make my life even better? Now I've stopped.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was similar to last summer. A few of the athletes from my team, they actually didn't plan for post Tokyo. So they obviously you get geared up, you're like, amazing experience, get your kit, you go to the Olympics, get a medal. And then they came back and they were like, well, what do I do now? And some of them really struggled, because obviously everyone expects you to be so happy, and you are happy, but then it's a really weird experience where you've been in a bubble of 10,000 of the world's best athletes, and you come back and you get the same questions over and over again. And I think some people actually struggled with it because they hadn't planned for afterwards. Yeah. They're like, oh, what do I do now? How do I transition back into relaxing? Because pre-Tokyo it was such a struggle with COVID, and I couldn't see my family or my boyfriend. I literally had to be in a house by myself for the week before, because I was so paranoid because of COVID. If you got it, you weren't going to go. And so post that, I was like, well, I was at home and I was like, well, what do? I don't have to do running sessions. I have to go to the gym. I can just chill. So yeah, it was really, really strange. And I think it's similar to that identity stuff. But planning is definitely so important.
Because the playing sport, big part of it is, as we were saying, it's chemical, neurochemical. You have these highs, winning, scoring goals as you do. It releases neurochemicals. It releases dopamine largely, and dopamine is addictive. And when you're on this high, this perpetual growing high, especially during the Olympics, where you win a game. You've won a few games to as you did to get through to the semi-finals and play for that bronze medal match. You've had a huge amount of dopamine kicks, which makes you feel good. It's literally putting you on a natural high. Mm-hmm. But then that ends, and that high and those feelings, those endorphins, the dopamine, the adrenaline, that then dissipates, and then it's back down to reality, the normal world again. And it's not quite as exciting, I'd imagine, is it?
No, not at all. Although it did last a few weeks, because I had a lot of 21st after it. It was so cool to go see everybody and see my old schoolmates. But no, definitely agree. I think post-Olympic blues is definitely a thing. And one of the Kiwi hockey players did an amazing post about it, how no one ever talks about post-Olympics, how it feels, regardless of whether you won a medal. And I think a lot of athletes actually go into sort of depression because they don't know what to do afterwards. They're like, I've achieved my biggest goal, and they're like, what do I do now? Because everything in their life has been building to that moment, and they achieve it, and they're like, it wasn't what they expected, or something like that, and they just don't know what to do next. which is really a bizarre concept, but obviously it's quite common.
It's and that often happens with people outside of sport as well, where people who become like successful in other industries, musicians, actors, actresses, who build their identity around becoming a millionaire, successful business person, I don't know, Oscar winner, that sort of thing, and then they spend their life striving to get to that, and then they get it, and they spent their whole life hanging their hat on getting this thing, and then when they get it, it's not quite what they thought that it was. And it often, well, with some people anyway, it then leaves them with that emptiness, kind of, is that all it was, kind of, is that all it was for, sort of thing.
Yeah, agreed. And even when I came back post Olympics, I had this really weird thing where I didn't think that I deserved my bronze, or it didn't feel like it was mine. It's like a really weird thing. And I was like, I spoke to our psychologist about it, and we went through why it might have felt like that. And I was like, I still am a bit oh, that's just a bit weird that it's mine. But yeah, I don't think it's really actually sunk in yet, even though it's been 8 months. Yeah, it was a weird thing. And then people would ask to see it, and I was like, oh yeah, just take it, because I don't want it. It doesn't feel like it's mine. Yeah, it was a really weird concept. Because then it was really cool. I was like, oh yeah, here's my medal. But then it was it doesn't feel like it's mine. But yeah, here it is.
Gosh. And how do you feel about it now? Has your relationship with that changed now? Are you feeling more?
Yeah, I'd say, I don't feel like I'm valued just on my achievements, because I think pre that I felt like people only wanted to talk to me because I'd won a medal at the Olympics.
Really?
And my people actually said to me at post that they were like, you got to be a bit careful because people want to I don't know, be friends with you or whatever. And then I was a bit like, oh, is that the only reason why people are being talking to me and being nice to me and stuff? But yeah, it was a really strange thing. But I think it's much better now, because I used to think about it the whole time post Olympics. I was obviously fresh off the back of it, I think about it the whole time. Whereas now I'm oh, that happened, and don't think about it every day. I'm it happened, and I'm on to the next sort of thing, I guess. So yeah,
fascinating, really. Yeah, again, just really appreciate your openness and honesty here. Explaining this, and anybody who listens and watch this, you're giving across such great, powerful messages to people here. Is it so? I really appreciate it, because, as I said, and as we both said at the start, often you athletes are looked at as just these, almost like robotic animals. Out they go and perform, and there's no, the emotional side of you athletes. It just isn't taken into account enough. That you are human beings with emotions, with feelings, with struggles, with highs and lows, and many people wouldn't ever think that winning a bronze medal would, kind of bring you to thinking and feeling like that,
Yeah, so bizarre. And I think it's probably linked to the fact that I wasn't actually very happy with the way I performed at Tokyo. So I was if I didn't feel like I performed well, did I really contribute to it? How much? You can't measure your contribution, but it was so weird, because even then the psychologist was yeah, but the coaches were so happy with you, and then I was well, yeah, but I'm not happy with myself. And it's weird in a team sport, because obviously it's a team effort, it's not based on individuals, but it was quite difficult to get my head around. And even now I'm people say, oh, you won a medal, I'm yeah, but it was the team. Just a weird dynamic kind of.
From the outside, just looking in, it seems there that correct me if I'm wrong, please do, that you just knew you had another level that you could have played at there, and because you didn't hit the level, and performance level that that you can, it's kind of left you a bit disappointed that you couldn't nail it yourself. Though the team did, you knew that there's more inside of you to come out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's literally exactly it. And I am more of an attacking player, but my role in the Olympics was more defensive, which I had to get my head around because my identity as a hockey player was being an attacking player. And at the Olympics, I did a hell of a lot of defensive work. So in penalty corner defense, I'm basically the flyer who goes out and blocks the ball. And that was something I did very well at the Olympics, but it was something that I didn't base my hockey identity on at all.
Yeah.
So I came back and I was like, I feel really disappointed, but I obviously still did well. It was just I knew I still had more to give. So I was like, oh, it's really frustrating because I've done well. But yeah, real mixed emotions.
Yeah. I guess, you know, I think the best way of looking at it is that this brings all the fuel for the fire to keep going forwards, doesn't it? You believe that you've got more to show, more to give, better, you know, a higher level of performance, and if anything, this can give you the motivation to get to the next Olympics or the one after that, whichever one it may be, and bring something different. If that, you know,
definitely.
Sure that's what's driving you now. You know, I want to go to the next one, and this is when it all happens. The way that you envisage it to go.
Yeah, and when I was there, I always thought when I watched the Olympics, I was like, oh, those athletes, none of them will have niggles. None of them, they'll be at the peak of their career. And I got there, and I genuinely thought I broke my foot like in the first week. So I was like, right, so I'm like playing on a niggle, and my captain said to me, Izzy, every one of these athletes will have a niggle. Like, but when you're watching it, you're like, you don't think that. You think they're at the top peak of their career, but a lot of these people are carrying a lot of, whether it being mental or physical, and I just always thought they were perfect. And I got there and I was like, oh no, like everyone's getting strapped and like literally, it was a very eye-opening experience, definitely, because they're not perfect. We're not perfect.
No, and I think that's another thing that all of us, you know, as humans and as athletes, that striving to be perfect and thinking that everyone's perfect is, you know, that it's a recipe for disaster. That because nobody is, and if you can only, you know, if we're constantly trying to arrange our lives, you know, so that everything is perfectly fitting in the way that we want it to be, and I'm in the best condition mentally, physically, emotionally, very rarely anybody is. And if people don't realize that themselves, they're going to set themselves up to fail. And that was certainly one of the earliest things that I learned in researching about elite athletes. I genuinely thought that these top athletes, I thought they had it easier than everybody else. And just learning about all the struggles, all the mistakes, the failed attempts, all the things that was going wrong in their lives. That was what really took me back. It was never, ever this straight line up for them. And if anything, it was the things that went wrong that then, bang, that took them up to the next level. And that's one of the key things which I really believe it affects elite athletes, is that in that moment where this big moment where something doesn't go their way, they split off into two. It either kicks them on or it breaks them, and that's the end. You know, the confidence goes, they don't come back from it, the motivation then drops, and all these other things stem from that one moment. And the top athletes find a way of taking that moment or moments which went wrong and utilizing it as something that they can grow from it and become even.
Yeah, I can resonate with that massively. I've had a few moments like that, and I've never actually, I don't think I've never gone down from it. I've always kicked on up, like used it as motivation. So at school, I remember someone said to me, oh, like this person's much better than you. I don't know why you're getting picked over her. And I was like, right, I've got to prove you wrong. And I managed to. So yeah, I just use it as motivation and use that like anger to like channel it into performing well.
Definitely. What do you think is your number one superpower? I'm sure you have more than one, but what's one thing that you do which kind of really separates yourself, or one thing that you do or have that really helps you perform to the level that you do or get to the level that you perform at. And this could be a skill that you have. It could be the way that you play tactically or technically. But it could also be kind of like a mental trait or something like that. What would be your superpower, is it?
The first thing that came to mind was like the consistency of training. So even when I was like 10, I used to go around my kitchen with a tennis ball and a hockey ball, just doing like skills. And then more recently, it's been like, I will never miss a running session. So over Christmas, we'll have the most brutal running session. It will basically be like track athletes, just like going on running sessions, doing gym. And I have it like in me that I will just never miss a session, because I'm like, well, if I miss that session, then what stops me missing other sessions?
Yeah.
And my mum used to say, we did double running session on Christmas Eve, which is horrible because obviously you want to get the Christmas spirit, but you're doing running sessions. And my mum said to me, she was like, why can't you just miss one? And I'm like, well, because if I miss one, then what stops me from missing 2 or 3 or 4? And then that adds up to like 20, and then that has an effect. So I definitely think it's just pushing myself, and even if it's like one more rep, because that's one more rep than someone else does. So then that adds up to, over a period of time, 10 more reps. So
awesome.
That's how I think. It's just a little, like, we call it 1% that make you better than the rest. Yeah.
Great answer, Izzy. Fantastic. Yeah. You're still obviously very young, but what advice would you give your younger former self, which would help that younger version of you be an even greater success? If you could go back in time, you've built up all these memories, all this wisdom, you develop your physical skills, your tactical ability, and you've gathered up all of these qualities and traits. If you could go back to a time when you was younger and pass something on to this younger version of you, what could this be?
I would say, do not try and be a perfectionist, because it does not end well. And I used to think like, oh, being a perfectionist is so good. Like, you always color in the lines, like you want to be like perfect at everything. And I used to think that was like, you have to be a perfectionist to be a great athlete, which is just so wrong, like so wrong. And I only realized that probably when I was like 17 or 18, because I used to think like, if I get tackled, that is so bad. Like, that is like the worst thing that can happen. But then now I'm like, well, if nobody ever got tackled, the game of hockey would not work. Like, everybody would score a goal. Everybody would like, yeah, it just wouldn't work. So like, you have to make mistakes for a game to work. Like, and it's how you like react off that. Yeah. So I'd say, do not be a perfectionist, because it doesn't work.
Great advice. Great advice indeed. As we said, you're still right at the beginning of your hockey career, but when you look back at it now, from being a much younger person, how do you feel about your career so far?
I always look at it in like a negative light. I think it's just the way I am. But when I actually look at the stats, like, I've only not been picked for one game since I started, and got an Olympic bronze. Like, it's not, if you had told me that by the age of 21, because I didn't think Tokyo was even on the cards for me, because like at the time I would have been like just turned 20, and like it just seems so out of reach. Like, post 2016, I was like, Tokyo would be amazing, but I don't think it's going to happen, because that's just so young. I mean, a year before that, I was in the under-18 England team, so it's like, that's just not going to happen. And it did, and I was like, oh wow, I'm here. So yeah, like, it is. I'm very proud of what I've achieved, but I know I still have more in me. So I'm like, I want to achieve more, like, and go to the next Olympics. And the pressure is to get selected again, because there's no guarantee I'll go, like, zero. It's all based on your performance at the time. So it's quite stressful, but like, I know I have it in me. So yeah, hopefully I'll go, but we'll see.
Brilliant. I'm sure you will, Izzy. That as you said, those 1%ers that you keep striving for, that desire that you've got to keep improving yourself, that's one of the greatest weapons any athlete can have. That not allowing that door to open to excuses, because as you said, if you miss one session, well, I'll have a rest at that one as well.
Yeah.
I think, as you pointed out about yourself, that really seems like something that's really going to help keep transcending you forwards and upwards to get to the next one, and see if you can take it even further at that one.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, we actually, as a squad, we've medalled the last 3 Olympics, which is never been done by GBT. So it's like, can we do it again? We'll see. But we're always striving for better, definitely. I mean, at the last Olympics, we didn't even think we'd medal. So we got there. We were like, oh wow, we've actually made it to the medal game. So, yeah.
I've got one last question for you then, Izzy. What is your definition or meaning of excellence?
Excellent. Good question. I would go back to the consistency thing and the always wanting to be better, but never settling, because I think that's what the most successful athletes do. They don't settle for their current standard. They keep striving for more because they just want to keep ahead of the field. It's like Adam Peaty, like his record is ridiculous, but he wants to go one like that 10th of a second quicker every time. Like he's never satisfied. So I do think it's like always striving to be better, and the consistency of it, definitely.
Great answer, and I certainly agree with that. I believe that the human potential is infinite, and far too many people put a ceiling over their head as to what they can and can't do, and with that comes quite a limited way of living life. And I think that the thing which enables all of us to live lives that we enjoy and want to be part of is continually growing, and whether that's growing on the pitch or court or whichever sport somebody plays, or whether it's just growing in life, just continuously being able to set yourself targets to keep improving in some way is so important. And so I absolutely love that you gave that as your definition of excellence, because I completely agree with it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just want to close the interview here, Izzy, by just thanking you so much for coming on and giving up your time. And I think more than anything, what I have truly enjoyed the most about our conversation has just been how open you have been with me and anybody watching this. And I just think you're such a fantastic role model for people that you've come on here and kind of shed a light on your own life in ways that many people wouldn't do, and you've kindly come on and shared things about your experiences, the highs and lows of doing what you do. And I've got absolutely no doubt that anybody watching and listening to this will certainly learn a huge amount from this. So thank you very, very much for coming on, Izzy. I've loved every second of it, and I've really enjoyed learning so much about you and your story.
No worries, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Izzy, and I'll speak to you again soon. See you later.
Cool, thank you.
The Inner Game Podcast, brought to you by the Science of Excellence. Unleash your power. Book your free consultation now.